What is going on, Pats Nation, and welcome back into another live stream here, recapping day 4 of New England Patriots training camp. Boy, oh boy, are we underway, and we have given you guys a lot of recaps already. I got this pinned in the live chat already. The playlist is also on the channel. You can also find it that way. But make sure you guys, after this live stream, after today's recap for day 4, you go back and you check out the other recaps that we've done for day 1, day 2, day 3. We are going to have you covered for every single day of training camp, everything that happens. In fact, just like I do every single year, your boy is going to be going down to Boston. I'm going to be going down to training camp myself and seeing if the media is really telling us the truth about what is going on with our New England Patriots. Because one thing you can always count on here with Patriots Global is that there ain't no boss here, baby. There ain't no boss. I'm my boss. I do what I do. I see what I see. I act how I act. So let me tell you, everything that I tell you when I get down to Boston is going to be strictly off of what I see, right? So that is going to happen the first week of August. So I'll be down there. Actually, I'll be down there for the final couple of days of training camp. It's actually kind of sad. But yeah, I'll be down there, not this coming week, but the following week, I'll be down there to see the final day of Patriots training camp and then the one day of joint practice with the Commanders. And I'll be reporting live there for you guys, letting you know everything that I am seeing with my own eyes. But like I said, check out the other training camp recap videos so that you can just get the full idea on what is going on with this team. But man, shout out to everybody in the chat. I appreciate you guys for being here on this Saturday night, kicking it with me to talk some New England Patriots, man. Shout out to Joe. Shout out to my boy, Luke. Luke, you are a member here of Patriots Global, showing us that classic PG face logo, man. Absolutely love it. Shout out to all the members of the channel. Consider becoming a member for exclusive benefits. We got Ashton up in the building saying, hit that like button. Ashton said it best himself, man. We got Mike up in the building. We got Chris up in the building. And we got, guys, we have the queen. We have the queen of Boston sports. We got Brooke herself up in the building. Guys, we need more female representation for the New England Patriots. I mean, Brooke is the only one I feel like I see. Brooke and Nicole, I swear, the only ones that I see. So shout out to Brooke for being in the chat, man. Like I said, we need more female representation here for the damn 6-time Super Bowl champions. But let's just go ahead and let's just get right here into day 4, because day 4 was a very, very busy day. By the title, you can tell DeMario Douglas is shining, and we're going to get into it. But I have a take. I have a take about DeMario Douglas because it's a little bit opposite, I feel like, on what you're hearing from the media, because you'll hear some people in Boston sports media saying, oh, well, DeMario Douglas, he's not a lock to make the roster. Maybe the Patriots trade him. Maybe they get Terry McLaurin and they trade DeMario Douglas away. That's not happening. In fact, I think the exact opposite, but we'll get to that when the time comes. Big shout out to my boy Brandon Flores, longtime supporter of the channel, that says, what's up, Colby? I hope to see you in Boston, bro. Brandon, it would be my absolute pleasure to see you in Boston, man. I hope that you're able to go down. I'll be there. So for anybody wondering, I will be there the 5th and the 6th. That is Tuesday and Wednesday. So the joint practice with the Commanders, I'll be there. And then the day before that, I'll also be at that practice. So for anybody wondering, you want to catch your boy? That's the one I'll be at, man. Shout out to Brandon for the $2 donation, man. It's helped support the channel significantly. But getting here into our general notes, just like we always do before we start breaking down each position. Guys, this is probably going to be the longest training camp recap video we've had yet. This is the most in-depth that I've gotten from reporters. Based off of what we're hearing, like, this was the most in-depth practice. So guys that were absent or not participating, it's the same guys that we've been talking about for the last 3 days. It's Matt Collins, it's Jalen Polk, it's Austin Hooper, it's Vidarian Lowe, Josh Minkins, and Carlton Davis was also back, not participating. Now, he was back yesterday, but we heard that Mike Vrabel said that the reason that 2 days ago Carlton Davis wasn't at practice was because he was just giving him some veteran rest. Returns to practice, and then a day later, he's not there again. So makes me wonder a little bit, is there maybe a minor injury that he's trying to come back from? Is there something that he maybe tweaked during spring practices, the first day of training camp maybe? I don't know, but that is certainly something to watch because I do understand giving your veteran players who are maybe a little bit more injury prone, your Morgan Moseses, your Carlton Davises, giving them a little bit of extra time to have veteran rest days to come back from these injuries. You need them good for week one. You don't necessarily need them a full go for training camp, but this much veteran rest this early on, I don't know. Screams like maybe there's a little bit something else going on. As for why Matt Collins and Jalen Polk are not participating, but they're not on the PUP list, I discussed that during yesterday's recap video. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. Mike Vrabel kind of gave us a little bit of an answer. But no guys were limited, so at least there's a benefit for the Patriots. You know, guys that are present are full participants. So look, maybe that's glass half full, maybe that's glass half empty, but I'm going to take a win where I can get it. Moving on here, though, to the rest of the general notes, you had both Ramondre Stevenson and Morgan Moses both making late appearances to practice today. They were normal participants. They weren't limited participants, nothing like that. But at least to start practice, they came in later than usual. Then you also had Jelani Tavai. He left practice at one point. It sounded like he was okay. It didn't sound like it looked like he tweaked anything. He wasn't down on the ground. Nobody talked about it afterwards. Looks like he walked off on his own power. So not sure what that's about. We'll have to see how he comes back tomorrow. Is he a limited participant? Is he a full participant? That'll give us a little bit more insight on what happened today, but just something to watch as we enter Monday, actually. Tomorrow, they don't have practice. So as we enter Monday, that'll certainly be something to watch. Now, again, today, a non-padded practice. Monday is supposed to be, according to the media, the first day that pads go on. That is going to be the biggest day of training camp yet. That is going to be the biggest day of the offseason yet come Monday. So make sure you guys are here for that recap. But overall, based off reports, it was a very fun day at practice. The vibes were high at practice. The crowd showed up. The fans showed up. The coaching staff was into it. The players were into it. It was a longer practice. Usually the team goes for roughly an hour and a half. Yesterday's practice was shorter. It was only roughly an hour. But today was definitely the longest practice that we've seen thus far. Overall, elite attendance from the fan base, elite attendance from the coaching staff, and elite attendance, most importantly, from the players. Now, moving on to each individual position, starting off here with 11 on 11s, Drake Maye with his worst day of training camp so far. Now, you guys are going to hear that, and you're going to be like, okay, all right, well, that's not good, right? Because everybody's got PTSD from the multiple turnovers he had last season, but more specifically, the narrative around spring practices was that the first day of OTAs, Drake Maye throws 4 interceptions. After that, he really didn't have a problem. But Drake Maye has been balling out in training camp. In fact, heading into today, Drake Maye had a 92% completion percentage throughout training camp and didn't turn the ball over at all. I mean, he only had 2 incompletions up to that point. Today takes a bit of a step back. He was 8 for 17 in 11 on 11s, but 2 of those were drops. So realistically, Drake should have been 10 for 17 if his receivers just could have held on to the ball. Josh Dobbs was 7 for 10 with an interception, and then Ben Woolridge was 1 for 2. Ben Woolridge, the UDFA backup there, still not getting a whole lot of go. I'll be curious to see just how much they use him in the preseason because he's getting in like 11 on 11s. He's only getting like 6, 7 attempts maximum. In 7 on 7s, he's only getting 3, 4 attempts. So it really might be in the preseason. You're going to see Ben Woolridge a little bit, but the preseason games really might just be the Drake Maye and Joshua Dobbs show, which, hey, look, I'm perfectly fine with that. But moving on here to the rest of the notes that we have here about the quarterback. 7 on 7s, Drake Maye goes 4 for 7, Joshua Dobbs goes 2 for 4, and Ben Woolridge goes 1 for 3. So far, the only quarterback to throw an interception here at practice has been Joshua Dobbs. Now, Drake Maye was sacked. Can't believe we're already here. Drake Maye was sacked what should have been 5 times today, which was messing with the overall consistency of the offense. Now, Drake also did at times have bad misses. Like I said, he's not turning the ball over. That's the biggest thing, but he is certainly still taking a step back today compared to recent days of training camp in terms of the ball placement, in terms of the consistency. Most important thing, though, is that he's not turning the ball over. But when you hear these things where a couple of days ago, Drake Maye sacked 4 times. Today, you're hearing that Drake Maye sacked 5 times. The fact that he's performing this well with how rough the offensive line is still performing I think that says a lot about Drake. And I think when you mix with what we saw from Maye last year, I really do feel like if this team going into 2026 just builds around him a little bit more, you get him a wide receiver one. If you can go out there and, by golly, just make this a good offensive line, make this a top 10 offensive line, I think that you are going to see Drake Maye flourish, because there is no quarterback that is going to flourish behind an offensive line that's having him get sacked 4 or 5 times in a game. Now, before anybody freaks out, let's also take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, because again, the pads aren't on. So what we're getting from the defensive line and the offensive line, it's very minuscule, right? We need to look at the takeaways when the joint practice happens, when the preseason happens, more specifically when the pads go on, because right now he's projected to have been sacked. He wasn't actually sacked. So come Monday, that really will be our first time at knowing what this offensive line is going to look like, our first true look. Overall, we also saw a lot more downfield passes today than in previous practices. The last couple of days have been more so short, intermediate, and that could also be why Drake Maye was sacked more times, right? The day after that we heard Drake Maye was sacked 4 times in training camp, the next day they worked a lot on the short passes, Drake Maye getting the ball out really quick. Today, they're working on the passes deep down the field, and he gets sacked 5 times. That makes a lot of sense. Why? Because if you're going to attempt a deep pass, you're going to try to get splash plays down the field, you need to have the time for those plays to develop. You need the receivers to get in and out of their breaks. You need time for those receivers to get down the field. You need Drake Maye to have enough time to get through his drop back and get through his progressions, right? You're not going to get deep plays if your quarterback has an average time to throw of less than 2 seconds. The average time to throw in the NFL is about 2.5 roughly seconds. If Drake Maye's got less than that, you're not going to get a lot of deep plays down the field. And I think that's why we struggled to see those this time last year. Now, overall, not a sharp day for the UDFA backup in Ben Woolridge. A lot of questionable decisions, questionable accuracy. In the limited snaps that we've seen him in the past, he's been pretty good with the accuracy. He's been pretty good with the decision-making and where he's putting the ball. Today, it was certainly a step back. But again, I also understand why maybe these quarterbacks struggled a bit more today, because trying to get those plays deep down the field, again, with how bad this O-line is, it's a new receiving room, it's a brand new offensive scheme under Josh McDaniels. I can understand why, they're going to struggle with that area a little bit more. But want to continue to get into some of these super chats, because we got my boy Brandon Flores back in here with a $2 donation. My boy, you said, who do you prefer more, Barcelona or Real Madrid? I got to go Barcelona. Brandon. I hope that doesn't make you mad. I hope that doesn't make you mad, Brandon, because you've been very, very generous with the super chats. But I'm going with Barcelona. But Brandon, if you send in another $2 donation, I will switch to Madrid if you want me to. Okay? Just know that. But anyway, getting back in here, moving on to the running backs. Today you had TreVeyon Henderson with a drop. TreVeyon Henderson has also just been balling out in the passing game, okay? For a guy that said once he was drafted that he was going to watch a lot of James White film, boy, oh boy, does it look like it's paying off, because he has been the most utilized guy in terms of the running backs, the most utilized guy in the passing game so far. It really looks like that role for TreVeyon Henderson. I think he's going to have a lot of roles, but that role for TreVeyon Henderson is really going to be that pass catching back. And I think that's really exciting, because he's a guy with speed, right? So we're seeing a lot more checkdowns from Drake Maye, which some people might be like, dude, he's going to be a checkdown merchant. I don't want that. I just think he's trying to be safer with the ball. I think Josh McDaniels is trying to have him be a little safer with the ball. But when you have a guy like TreVeyon Henderson, who you can check the ball down to 5 yards, but can easily make that a 10, 15-yard gain, that's what this offense needs. This offense, at least early on, is not going to be the type of offense that gets splash play downfield, splash play downfield, splash play downfield. It's going to be under Josh McDaniels. Just strategically move the chains. Work on getting the first down, and then work all your way on getting down the field. Don't try to get, down the field within 2-3 plays. If the play is there, okay. If a play is potentially there, let it develop. But you can't go broke taking a profit. I've heard that so much this offseason throughout this Patriots media. Like, that is the narrative around this team and Drake Maye, is that you can't go broke taking a profit. Take the check down. Don't force something down the field. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think someone like TreVeyon Henderson is going to go a long way for that narrative. You also had TreVeyon Henderson haul in a deep pass down the sideline from Joshua Dobbs. He had missed one earlier on a very similar play, but then they come back, they run essentially the same play, and Joshua Dobbs finds TreVeyon Henderson. Moving on here to the wide receivers, Stefon Diggs did have a drop earlier. We mentioned how, Drake Maye in his 11-on-11s, he had 2 receivers drop his passes. One of those was Stefon Diggs. Now, DeMario Douglas, okay? And you see it in the title, DeMario Douglas shines. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. And I told you guys that I'm kind of on the opposite of where Boston media is, right? And it's not all Boston media. I want to make that clear. But there are some people, some reporters within Boston media that during the dead period of football a couple weeks ago, that they essentially tried to build this narrative that DeMario Douglas is not a lock, that DeMario Douglas, maybe he gets traded and all this crap. Now, DeMario Douglas was always making this team. DeMario Douglas was always going to be a lock. And based off of what we heard, even in spring practices, where DeMario Douglas throughout mandatory minicamp was the guy throughout 2 days. Like, he was the guy getting open the most consistently, short, intermediate, deep, making plays, working with all 3 quarterbacks, and all 3 quarterbacks having that trust within him. You have one side of Boston media saying he might not be a roster lock. But then you have me saying that DeMario Douglas might be a wide receiver 2 for this team. And maybe that sounds crazy, and this isn't exactly apples to apples, but I think of him as like a Khalil Shakir, right? And again, this isn't exactly apples to apples. You have Pop Douglas, who obviously is a little bit more small. I would obviously say, too, that Pop Douglas is a little bit more quick. I think that Shakir is a little bit of a better technician. Pop Douglas is someone who gets open more so off of his quickness. But Shakir for the Buffalo Bills, that's a guy that's not a wide receiver 1, but he could put up somewhere between 700 to 900 yards for you. He's a really, really good wide receiver 2. Again, he never wants to be a wide receiver 1, but Shakir's mainly a slot guy that gets really good production. And I think that Pop Douglas could be that guy. Let's not forget that Pop Douglas was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL this past season in separation against man coverage. Pop Douglas got open so much more than we realized last year. But the reason that he didn't get more production, the reason that nobody is talking about this, is because that we didn't have the offensive line to get Pop Douglas the ball. Alex Van Pelt was scheming up for Pop Douglas to only get open, intermediate, and deep. But we didn't have the offensive line for Drake Maye to be able to get Pop Douglas the ball intermediate or deep. It had to be short to intermediate because of how bad the O-line was. Josh McDaniels is now using Pop Douglas, not just intermediate, not just deep, but he's also using him in the short area of the field also, which is why I think that Pop Douglas, he is going to be someone whose stock goes up. His production is going to go up. He's really good after the catch. I think that's why Josh McDaniels sees Pop and he says, this is someone who can be a deep threat, but this is somebody who also can be a guy who we dump the ball off to 5-10 yards. And because of his quickness, because of his nifty moves, this is a guy that can easily turn that 5-10 yard pass into a 15-20 yard gain easily. I think the narrative, I think what the Patriots want to do this season early on is going to be telling Drake Maye to take the checkdowns, to work into the short intermediate section of the field, to hand the ball off, and just rely on their receivers to do something after the catch. The biggest thing that I think could hold Pop Douglas back that he has to work on is zone coverage, right? Like I said, Pop Douglas is one of the best wide receivers. This is a fact. This is not opinion. Statistically, in 2024, Pop Douglas was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL at getting open against man coverage. His problem is zone coverage. Pop doesn't exactly know where to find the soft spots in zone coverage and how to sit in it. And if he can do that, if he can develop there, I really believe that he can be a very good number 2 receiver behind Stefon Diggs. In fact, that's what I'm predicting it to be. Who's going to end up being your wide receiver 3? I don't know yet. Is it going to be Kyle Williams? Is it going to be KB? Is it going to be Matt Collins? I don't feel confident about putting anybody there yet. But I think that Diggs is going to be your number 1, and I feel confident that Douglas is going to be your number 2, especially when it comes back to production by the end of the season. But Douglas was the player of the day. That's what the media was saying, that he was the player of the day. He connected with Drake Maye on a 50-yard touchdown where he rerouted himself. Maye scrambled out of the pocket and threw off of 1 foot. Beautiful connection. Douglas also made a tight catch on a back shoulder fade over Marcus Jones. He also added a 20-yard catch on a crosser from Drake Maye. All of the plays that Pop Douglas is making, they're all with the first team offense. They're all with Drake Maye. That is exactly what we want to see, baby. Like, it sounds so stupid, I know, but Josh McDaniels is coming in here and he's saying, these are our best players. These are our strengths. We're going to utilize it. It just feels like for years, really ever since Josh McDaniels left, it feels like we haven't had an offensive coordinator that uses players the way they should be used and uses them to their strengths. And now we're finally seeing that, and it finally just makes me feel like I'm not going insane. In fact, we do have a video of the Pop Douglas 50-yard touchdown catch from Drake Maye. We're going to show you that. Which, by the way, shout out to my boy Paz Planet in the chat. Another really, really good Patriots content creator. I suggest you guys go ahead and check him out. That's my boy right there. He said, yeah, Douglas, you're number 2 technically. I always throw the slow as number 3. I agree with you, bro. I agree with you. But let's go ahead and let's take a look real quick at the Pop Douglas video that was posted by the Patriots on social media. So we don't get copyrighted. But you just see Drake Maye off platform, scrambles out of the pocket. Looks like that this play was over Kyle Duggar. Now, I'm assuming that it wasn't just Duggar on Pop Douglas. I'd be really concerned with what Terrell Williams is doing with the defense if you're putting Kyle Duggar on Pop Douglas. But it looks like Gonzo was on Pop Douglas there from what it looks like, okay? I wasn't there. I don't know what the exact defensive play call was, but it looks like you had Gonzo there on the outside, but then you also had Duggar working over the top. So that also might have just been zone coverage, and Gonzo passed it off to Duggar, and Pop Douglas was just too quick for Duggar to be able to work around it. But nonetheless, a 50-yard bomb, Drake Maye off platform, 1 foot to Pop Douglas, and a 50-yard touchdown. These are the types of plays that we want to see this upcoming season. And based off of what we're hearing, it sounds like we are going to get some of these 40, 50, maybe even 60-yard touchdowns, which I'm really, really excited to see. Oh, let's make sure I don't get myself copyrighted here. But let's go ahead and let's continue to move on here with the rest of the offense. Finishing up with wide receivers, Kayshon Boutte also connected with Drake Maye today on a dig route. Also got himself open on a curl route too. Honestly, Pop Douglas, or not Pop Douglas, but Kayshon Boutte might be the third wide receiver right now. I said a little bit earlier, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can necessarily put a guy at wide receiver 3. But to be completely honest with you guys, based off of what happened in spring practices and based off of what's happened in training camp through 4 days, Kayshon Boutte has been your third wide receiver. Kayshon Boutte has been your third wide receiver. And again, it's too early for me to say definitively. I feel definitive that you're going to go Stephon Diggs as wide receiver 1, Pop as wide receiver 2, but Kayshon Boutte might be in the front seat there for wide receiver 3 in my mind at least. And then we also have a little bit of news here about Kyle Williams. Now, Kyle Williams, he's been really good. He's been performing well. He's developing well. He was at Drake Maye's throwing session a few weeks ago. I think with Kyle Williams, we're just building on that consistency a little bit. One day at camp, he'll ball out. The next day, we won't hear anything. He didn't really necessarily make any plays that caught any eyes today, but we did hear that he was working more as the X receiver. Makes a ton of sense. I think they're going to use Kyle Williams everywhere, but I think Kyle Williams is going to be that burner in this offense. Like Kyle Williams is going to be your Brandon Cooks, your Phillip Dorsett, your Nelson Aguilar. And usually with those guys under Josh McDaniels, they tend to play in the X. Now, I don't think he's going to be the only X. I don't think he's going to be the full-time X, but I do think that Kyle Williams is a guy that we'll see primarily working in that X. Now, Javon Baker, okay? For all the Javon Baker fans out there, for anybody that for some reason still believes in Javon Baker, I certainly don't. I certainly have not believed in Javon Baker for a long time. But for anybody that believes in him, today was your day to stand on damn business, okay? Because Javon Baker actually made a play today. Javon Baker connected with Drake Maye on a 60-yard touchdown and then ran by that defense with ease. Now, Javon Baker isn't a guy with speed, so did the defense lack? Was this against the first-team defense? Was this against the third-team defense? I have a lot of questions about the play, but nonetheless, Javon Baker did connect with Drake Maye on a 60-yard touchdown today. So for whatever that's worth, there you go. There you go. And then lastly, for the wide receivers, Efton Chisholm did see reps stay with the first-team offense. That is the first time that we've heard that the UDFA wide receiver has been rolling with the first-team offense in spring practices. He's been very, very quiet. He has been very, very quiet since he really broke out in spring practices. So him rolling with the first-team offense is certainly good. It is certainly a good sign. I think they believe in him enough to say, what would he look like if he does make the 53-man roster? But I do think that Efton Chisholm, he's going to need to start stringing some days together a little bit more, because right now we are just not hearing anything from him. And then as for the tight ends, you had Hunter Henry being the most consecutive and most consistent target for Drake Maye today. They connected on 2 passes on multiple medium crossers, which is usually where they do connect. I feel like for the most part, and I'm not saying never, but for the most part, you don't really see Drake Maye connecting with Hunter Henry on short passes. It's usually those intermediate passes, somewhere between, 10 to 20 yards is usually where you see those guys connect. But then you also had Jaheim Bell. He made a good impact catch on a ball from Ben Woolridge and the third-team offense. So I do still believe that battle for the third tight end, I think it is certainly still up in the air, and nobody has ran away with it just yet. But moving on here to the offensive line, the first-team O-line from left to right was Will Campbell, Cole Strange, Garrett Bradbury, Michael Onwenu, and then DeMontre Jacobs. Now, the reason that DeMontre Jacobs was starting at right tackle was because, again, Morgan Moses, sounds like they were giving him more of that veteran day, more of a rest day, because it was such a ramped up period. Probably makes sense why a guy who's 34 years old, maybe you give him a little bit more time off. But again, he also came to practice a little bit later today. So with Morgan Moses out, DeMontre Jacobs was the guy that stepped in at right tackle. And look, I've talked about DeMontre Jacobs a lot over the last few days, so I'm not going to bore you guys, but yeah, we need a better right tackle. We need a better backup right tackle, because if DeMontre Jacobs has to come in and start for a few games, I don't feel confident. And I don't feel confident for obvious reasons, okay? You know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to show you guys, okay? That way you can't be like, well, Patriots Global, you were like verbally attacking DeMontre Jacobs. I didn't say anything. I just showed you facts, okay? This is all. This is all I'm going to put out there. Yeah, that is not a guy. Me personally, that is not a guy that I want starting at any point, right tackle or left tackle. We heard yesterday they were giving him reps at left tackle. DeMontre Jacobs is just, no disrespect to him as a person, but as a player, I need a better backup right tackle. If he's going to be our swing tackle, needs to be someone better. And maybe that's a role that Vidarian Lowe takes on whenever he comes back healthy. But your second team offensive line was Bryant Wallace. So Caden Wallace is still getting a lot of reps over at left guard. And then you have Jared Wilson at center, City So at right guard. And then there was just no reported right tackle for the second team offense. So I don't know how you're going to run a second team offensive line with just no right tackle. But literally it says NA. When it was reported who the second team offensive line was, I was reading from left to right. I was like, okay. Oh, okay. Then Wallace is there. Okay, that's interesting. All right, Jared Wilson. Good to see him getting reps at center. And, there's no one at right tackle. Okay, well, I feel bad for that quarterback. There's no right tackle, but nothing to take away too much there for me. Bryant working over at left tackle. Sounds like that's where he's worked the majority of the time. I'm kind of surprised they haven't worked him more at right tackle also, but he's someone that I thought maybe would be cross-trained a little bit more and could be the swing tackle, but so far he's really only worked at left tackle. I'll be really curious to see how this Caden Wallace experiment works at left guard in joint practices, but more specifically, what does Caden Wallace look like at left guard in the preseason? Actually really excited to see that, because this was a guy that, during the draft process in 2024, many people thought that he was going to be a guard in the NFL, not a tackle. So could he potentially be the Patriots' future at left guard if he's not going to pan out at tackle? I'm going to watch that storyline closely. And then as for the third team offensive line, you had Yasir Durant over at left tackle. You had Ty Robinson at left guard, Brown at center, Layden Robinson at right guard, and then Conley over at right tackle. Overall, it was a tougher day for the offensive line. Like I said, multiple sacks allowed. Drake Maye was sacked what was said to be 5 times, but also multiple pressures were also allowed. But some good news for that offensive line is that first-round pick Will Campbell went 2-0. He was undefeated in his one-on-one matchups today. He had wins against Anthony Jennings and Keon White. That battle with White, which we've heard about all offseason long, looks like, at least for today, sounds like Will Campbell came out the winner. And then Jared Wilson, the rookie third-round pick there over at center, saw the majority of his actions with the first-team offense, played at both center and at left guard, so they're continuing to cross-train Jared Wilson. Said this in yesterday's recap, but I really do feel like they want Jared Wilson to be in this offensive line. I think that they believe that Jared Wilson is one of their best 5 offensive linemen. And I don't think the battle is, okay, Jared Wilson against Cole Strange or Jared Wilson against Garrett Bradbury. The battle might actually be Cole Strange and Garrett Bradbury. Like, which of those guys is best to remain on the offensive line, and which of those guys gets beat out for Jared Wilson to take their spot? Again, something to watch closely. But overall, just more opportunities for Caden Wallace at left guard. That's why we're seeing him more at left guard than tackle. I'll be curious to see how that storyline develops too, because at some point they're going to have to decide, do we want Wallace to be developing as a right tackle, or do we want Wallace developing as a guard? So that's also something we want to watch. Now, moving on here to the defense. The defensive line absolutely balled out today. You had Keon White with 2 sacks today, Milton Williams with the sack, and Harold Landry also with the sack. According to my count, that is now 2 or 3 sacks for Milton Williams, the big offseason addition for the Patriots in free agency so far through 4 days of training camp. Harold Landry with 2 sacks, and then Harold Landry today also had a pass breakup. As for the linebackers, you had Robert Spillane with 2 pass breakups and Jack Gibbons with 1. Christian Ellis was certainly a standout amongst the linebacker group. He had a really, really good rep against Travion Henderson on a wheel route. I really do think that your best coverage linebacker is going to be Christian Ellis. He was one of the best coverage linebackers in the preseason last year, and I think he developed really well down the stretch in coverage for the Patriots in 2024. As for the cornerbacks, you had Marcellus Dial with the sack, and then you also had Marcus Jones force a fumble on Stephon Diggs. It was a really good recovery by Marcus Jones after Stephon Diggs made a really, really good catch, worked well through contact on Marcus Jones, but sounded like it surprised the veteran wide receiver a little bit. Stephon Diggs, when he catches the ball, that's not a guy that usually fumbles. So the fact that Marcus Jones made that play, I'm telling you guys, when Marcus Jones is on the field, Marcus Jones is an absolute dog. As for the safeties, you had Jabril Peppers with an interception today, and then rookie 4th-round pick Craig Woodson saw the majority of his work with the first-team defense today. He certainly slowed down a little bit compared to what we were hearing in spring practices, but I think when pads go on and joint practices come on, that's when we're going to hear more about Craig Woodson. And this was a guy that was really, really doing well as a rookie in spring practice. If he can continue to keep that up, he's going to have an immediate role in this defense. And then lastly here for special teams, the kick returners. We finally got our first look at who the returners are going to be for the Patriots. So kick returners, we didn't hear anything about punt. But as for kick returners, you had Travion Henderson, Antonio Gibson, Travion Williams, Lan Larison, Terrell Jennings, DeMario Douglas, Kyle Williams, Javon Baker, Efton Chisholm, and Isaiah Bolden all working as kick returners. I don't think the Patriots have ever tried this many guys at kick returner. But given the fact that there is that new kickoff rule, this is year 2 of that, I think this team's also trying to figure out, okay, how do we adapt to this new rule compared to what the rule once was? Because it's not necessarily having the fastest guy back there anymore. It really is having guys who can avoid tacklers the best, who can shake off tacklers the best, and break a couple to get down there to the field and maybe take one home. So certainly something to watch moving forward. I would still think that your main punt returner would be Marcus Jones. But the team worked on fielding what was described as those squib kicks today. So not necessarily those deep kicks, not necessarily trying to get the ball back or anything, but mainly just the squib kicks. And then Lan Larison, the UDFA running back, did fumble on a kick return. So maybe stock down for him a little bit today. But that is your recap for New England Patriots day 4 of training camp. Want to give the Patreon members an opportunity to come on. It's been a little bit since we've heard from them. Want to get their thoughts. We want Pats Nation to come on in. We want the fans to come on in and let us know what are their thoughts about what they have heard about this team in 4 days of training camp. So without further ado, let's just go ahead, and I think we should probably actually change up the setting a little bit here. Let's just do, probably should have done this before, but that's okay. We'll kick it this style, and let's bring on our boy DTN. DTN, give me 1 second. Here we go. There we go. Right on, DTN. DTN, what's going on, buddy?
Nothing much, Kobe. I've just had a nap. My schedule has been a bit iffy considering that I just started work overnight shift as a night stalker at a grocery store. So
you getting paid bread there? I heard it's like what, like $18 at least, right? 18 to 20?
I think it's like $17 working there. So
oh man, they're ripping you off, DTN.
Oh, it's actually really fun considering that I don't have to work with customers. But there was actually one more stat that I think Tom mentioned in the Discord chat that nobody talked about, and it has to do with the kickers. So it was reported that Andres Bogales completed for 2 out of 4 field goals, and then John Parker Romo completed like 3 out of 4 field goals. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everybody's gonna be like, why is Andres Bogales like somewhat like taking his foot off the brakes right there? But it's not the best, because when you look at the overall practices, when you think of OTAs, when you think of mini camp, and when you think of training camp so far, Morgales has completed like 24 out of 28 field goals, and
very consistent.
John Parker Romo completed like 23 out of 28 field goals. What are your thoughts on that, Colby?
Yeah, I think that everybody wants the narratives at this time of the year. Everybody's like, all right, well, what are the battles? But I don't really think there is one for kicker, to be honest with you. I just think you need multiple kickers. I think that they drafted a rookie, and it's all about mindset. They don't want him coming in thinking that he just has the job. They want him to continue to battle. They want him to continue to strive and say, hey, there's a veteran on the back here. Here's where if you come in and you get complacent, he very well could take your job. But they used a 6th-round pick on him. He was the first kicker that was taken in this draft. He's by far been the best kicker throughout the entire offseason, OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. So I don't think that it's a battle whatsoever. But again, football's what have you done for me lately? If Andy Borgales falls off right at the end here and John Parker Romo starts to maybe be on an uphill track, then things can still change. But at least up to this point, it's no battle to me.
Yeah. Another thing I really wanted to talk about, and it has to do with Jalen Polk's attendance. And it seems like we all know that Jalen Polk has been missing out because of like, if I'm not mistaken, muscle tightness. And I heard that Mike Vrabel is usually not a huge fan of these kind of injuries. So what is the status on Jalen Polk, and is he on the hot seat considering that he might be missing out on the playbook? There's a chance that it's gonna look bad for the teammates if he's gonna continue missing out within like the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that Jalen Polk and Javon Baker are certainly both on this hot seat. Something that we do have to keep in mind, too, is that, yes, Elliott Wolf did draft both of those guys. And, yes, they used a high 2nd-round pick on Jalen Polk. But I don't think that Elliott Wolf is the guy running the shots. Like, this time last year, Elliott Wolf was the guy running the shots. Like, people don't understand that Drake Maye had no idea what he was doing. Elliott Wolf, as a GM who was overseeing the personnel of the football team, he had his hands on this team way more than he should have, but it's because of Drake Maye. He wasn't ready. And so now that you have Mike Vrabel, you have Stretch here, Elliott Wolf is definitely taking more of a back seat. So what he did last year, the draft class that he had last year, it's not going to matter to Stretch. It's not going to matter to Mike Vrabel. It's not going to matter to Josh McDaniels when they're figuring out who's making this team. They're thinking about winning games. They're thinking about success. They're thinking about the development of their year 2 quarterback in Drake Maye. So they are going to go with their 6 or 7 best wide receivers. They are not going to go with a guy that was just drafted high and feeling like, okay, well, we have to keep him here, not because he's the most talented, but just because he was a 2nd-round pick under under a front office that was here before we even got here and changed what the system was doing. So from what Mike Vrabel said, the reason that Jalen Polk and even Matt Collins haven't been on the PUP list is because if you're on the PUP list, you can't even practice throughout walkthroughs. So it sounds like keeping them off the PUP list allows them to participate in some type of level. But then when things start to ramp up, 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, team drills, stuff like that, that's when they go to the separate field and start rehabbing. But DTN, I completely agree with you. If you do not have Jalen Polk coming back soon, he's screwed. If he doesn't, I would say if he doesn't come back Monday, he's screwed. That's when pads go on. That's when he needs to make his name heard. This is a crowded wide receiver room. And I'm not saying it's the best wide receiver room in the league or even close. But what I'm saying is that there is a lot of wide receivers on this roster that are NFL caliber guys that deserve to be on a 53-man roster. It is going to be a battle down to the end. And I think they should keep 6. I don't even think they should keep 7.
Yeah, there's a possibility that it could be between 6 or 7 because we all know Josh McDaniels loves to like bring in like a lot of bodies, but at the same time, we all know that Josh McDaniels loves to bring in like 4 running backs in his offense. Like there will be no surprise if he brings in both Stevenson, Gibson, Henderson, and Larison. But there's actually a couple things I want to talk about, and it has to do with the offensive line. And I know it's sickening to our stomachs that we have to see DeMontre Jacobs again at starting right tackle. It makes sense for Morgan Moses because he's like 34 years old, but why not put in like Caden Wallace because he did play right tackle at Penn State, but the questions are he hasn't played like a full season last season. They basically put him all over the place, which basically ruined his development. So I don't understand why they didn't put Caden Wallace in the first team lineup, or maybe have like Jack Conley or maybe someone with like right tackle experience, either at college or in the NFL.
Yeah, I completely agree. It just feels like so far throughout training camp, their kind of thought process with Caden Wallace is more as a guard and not so much as a tackle. And I trust them. I trust them more than I trust myself, or I trust the fan base or even the media, because they know what's going on way more than we do. But you drafted him as originally a tackle, and that's where you had him developing for an entire year. And I thought that he showed flashes before getting injured. I would have just loved to see what he could do at tackle, because this team, I think, needs more help at tackle than it does guard. And I understand that we have guys to fill in at left tackle and right tackle right now between Will Campbell and Morgan Moses, and left guard is certainly a competition. But I do feel that I have enough confidence in the guys we have at left guard to be able to substitute in between Layden Robinson, Cole Strange, City. So between those guys, I think we have enough guys to be able to make it work there at left guard. But at right tackle, if Morgan Moses goes down and he's someone at 34, he's not going to play a whole season for us. He's going to miss some games. And when that happens, who's stepping in? And it looks like DeMontre Jacobs. And me personally, I just don't feel confident with him doing so. I think we addressed the starting offensive line well, but I think the depth behind those guys concerns me. The depth at left tackle, the depth at right tackle, it's certainly concerning.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh, I just heard that there was news like a couple of days ago that Christian Wilkins has been released by the Raiders. And I overheard a quote that Mike Vrabel did have conversations with Christian Wilkins. My only concern with Christian Wilkins is that foot injury, and if he was willing to have that foot surgery. So are you willing to take the risk of bringing Christian Wilkins to boost up that defense, or you're really good with Milton Williams and Christian Barmore?
Yeah, I think it's certainly something we should even make a video about. And what I would say is I've heard it. I've heard the rumors. I've kind of been trying to get my own thoughts together and dig more on the situation before I make an entire video about it. But there have been rumors around there. So for all 78 of you watching, you guys get a little bit of an inside look before that video drops. But supposedly there's rumors going around that the Patriots are interested in Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins actually grew up a Patriots fan. He grew up in Massachusetts. Mike Vrabel scouted him coming out of high school. So there is a lot of connections between Christian Wilkins and the New England Patriots. So it would make sense, but how much money does he want? If he wants to come here for not a lot of money, okay, I'll take on Christian Wilkins. I mean, the Patriots have the most money in cap space. They have like $60 million still to spend, but they've made a lot of investments on that defensive line, more specifically the interior. Christian Barmore got an extension a year ago, $25 million a year. You have Milton Williams, who you gave a big deal to, $26 million a year. You are giving over $50 million a year to 2 guys on that interior. Those guys have to play as much as possible. Those guys need to eat because you are paying them to do so. Christian Wilkins is going to come in and he's going to be a rotational guy, right? And that's not bad to have. You see the value of that with the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, it's how much does he want? If he wants any more than $10 million a year, and even then that might be a little rich, but any more than that, and I'm not giving it to him because I think that is too much for a guy that is going to play as a rotational role, who's going to play situationally. And I do think there's ways to get all three of those guys on the field because Milton Williams could play a little bit on the edge. Barmore can play a little bit on the edge. But for the most part, that's not the D-line that you're going to see. So I think if you bring him in, he's only going to play 50, 60% absolute max. I think even that's too high for Christian Wilkins. So for me, just depends on the money.
Yep. And last but not least, I know that it's been a while since we did the Patreon calls, and I'm so excited for what's going to be coming in the school during the school year because that's when the NFL season starts. And I got some updates, and I know that there's a couple of people in the chat who may see me because of my own content, which is NE Patriots Talk. Like some of the people that I do know are from this chat, and I do have some homegrown like subscribers. So basically, you should get all excited. And good news, Colby. I'm making so basically, I talked to my one friend who is actually from Massachusetts. So either on the 5th or the 6th, maybe we're gonna hitch a ride and get down to Foxborough and maybe do a meet and greet with you. So I'm really excited for that. And hopefully, so much content is coming. Maybe I could do like a live recap of training camp since, unfortunately, because of my stupid work schedule, it has been chaotic. But at least I'm gonna try my best to put out more content. So many film breakdowns I want to get done because me and Paperwaves and the rest of the other folks in my new group, the Patriots Clubhouse, we're going to be working on a huge project on the Will Campbell film breakdown. So you don't want to miss it. And there's going to be a lot more content. So I'm excited for what NE Patriots Talk has in store for us. But yeah, I'm so excited to meet some of you guys. I'm so excited to chat more Patriots with you guys. So I'm really excited.
DTN. I love it. I absolutely love that. I'm looking forward to your film breakdowns also. Let the people know where can they find this Patriots content of yours?
So please go on to NE Patriots Talk. Basically, some of my co-hosts are basically our fellow friends here in the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, so in the past, I had MA Football Guy. I just brought in Paper Waves to be the assistant here. Unfortunately, our man and our donator SGT Moonshine has been MIA because he does have some like IRL stuff. But at the end of the day, at least I have some like awesome friends here in the chat that are like my co-hosts. So basically, this is a friendly environment for all Pats fans who are. I want this to be the extension of what Patriots Global and NE Patriots Talk is. So yeah, you should watch it.
I love it, DTN. Well, buddy, we appreciate you for coming in. We appreciate you for being a Patreon member. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out NE Pats Talk there over on YouTube, man, to hear a little bit more from DTN. But we'll get into a couple of your guys' questions in the chat, and then we'll log off for the day. Keep in mind, guys, okay? No training camp recap tomorrow. The team is off tomorrow. They'll be back on Monday, so we'll be back with the recaps on Monday. In fact, I'm happy to announce this in front of all 88 of you currently watching right now. I probably should have done this at the beginning of the show, but that's okay. We're going to be doing something brand new on Mondays, okay? I threw this out in one of my videos. A few of you commented saying you wanted to see it, and so I said, you know what? We're going to see how it goes. If it does well, we'll do it every day. If it doesn't do too well, we'll never do it again. But on Monday, we are going to be doing live updates and reactions to New England Patriots training camp. The first day of PADS, I felt like Monday was the best way of doing so, the best day to do this for the first time. So Monday at about 9:30 or 10 in the morning, God, I know it's early. I want to be half asleep myself, but 9:30, 10 in the morning here on Patriots Global, we are going to be doing a live stream where the media is going to be tweeting about things, and we're going to react to it live together. We're going to break it live here on a stream. We're going to react to any videos that come out, any highlights. But on top of that, we're also going to be reacting all here together to the press conferences. Before practice, hearing what Mike Vrabel has to say. After practice, hearing whatever players are going to be in the press conferences, hearing what they have to say about the team and reacting to it live together. So I hope you guys will come kick it with me early on Monday to hear what's going on for New England Patriots training camp. Of course, later on, we'll also have a regular recap for you guys also. But like I said, let's get into a couple of these questions before we move on. My boy S27 says, wait, PG, where do you live? Like what state? Don't dox yourself. Well, if you want the exact number, let me put my IP out there for you. But no, I live in Pennsylvania, right? It's sad. It's sad, man. But I always go down to Boston. Every single year for you guys, I go down to Boston. I take the 5-6 hour drive and we go down there and we see what the haps is, man. We make sure that the media is doing their job right. And I give you guys my unbiased thoughts. So that'll be happening in about 2 weeks or so. We got my boy Chris up in here saying, Colby, you don't think it's fair to see what Polk can produce this season with a much improved coaching? Chris, I actually am one of the few people that do believe in Jalen Polk, right? And so I do think that he's on the outside looking in. I do think that Jalen Polk needs to get back to practice ASAP if he wants any chance at somehow making this roster. In fact, at this point, Jalen Polk has been dealing with injuries so much. I mean, keep in mind, he got off-season shoulder surgery. But he's been dealing with so many injuries that maybe there's a world in which they Foxborough flew him, right? Like, it's not like it's anywhere out of the blue. He clearly is dealing with an injury. Maybe that's his best case at sticking around. Maybe he competes next year. And they just say, this year, you're done. Or at least for the first few weeks of the season, you're done. That's a real possibility. But statistically speaking, there's not many receivers who have busted out in their first year and then come back from it. I'm not saying it's impossible, okay? Most players last year were in a bad situation. Jalen Polk was one of them. It just feels like he started off the season hot. The preseason, the offseason, he was great. Let's not forget some of the plays he made against the 49ers week 4, but it was after that touchdown, non-touchdown against Miami that he just never came back the same. But you also had Elliott Wolf said that they threw so much on his plate that mentally it overwhelmed him. And playing receiver, you can't be in your head. And with Jalen Polk, we saw so many of those concentration drops. Why? Because he was so much in his head. He needs to just go out there, be confident, play freely. And we saw that, again, he was in his head. He had no confidence. And when those two things coincide together as a receiver, you suck. And so the biggest question for Polk is going to be, not can he come back from this injury, but the biggest question is going to be, can he get past his biggest obstacle? And the biggest obstacle is himself. If he can get past that mental block that he has, then I think Jalen Polk can still be a good receiver. I don't think he's ever going to be a number 2 at this point. But can Polk be a good number 3? Can he be a good 4? There's still a possibility on that. But unfortunately, given what the coaching staff is with Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel, those guys aren't going to be patient. They want to win. They want to win right now. Kraft wants to win now, or they just might not have the patience with him. I would love to see what Polk can do under McDaniels and with Drake Maye. But unfortunately, the world continues to turn. Life doesn't wait for you. It's one of the most sucky things about life, about reality. Right? For any kids that are watching, you know you reached adulthood when you accept that nobody waits for you and the world keeps going on. No matter what happens to you, no matter what you're going through. And it's the same thing with Jalen Polk. Football is an excellent example of that. It's where nobody's going to care what's going on with you. The team's going to do its best for their success. And if he can't come back, they're going to go with the guys that can be the most reliable. Because what's more important than Jalen Polk working out is Drake Maye working out. And they need to surround Drake Maye with receivers that are going to be the best for him. Let's see. We'll get into... We got Patriots 12. I just realized we didn't get into this super chat. Patriots 12 with a $3 donation. My boy says, please try to do a game with the AFC East roundtable. So me and the guys were trying to do one in Boston at Gillette this year. Unfortunately, the Patriots, like salespeople, like the people that sell the tickets for the stadium and the games and all, they were selling those tickets high. Like, just for the record, A Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins game was less expensive than like New England Patriots and Jets at Gillette Stadium. And so it was just so much money that we were like, yeah, this probably isn't the best because nobody's going to pay this kind of money. So look, I will continue and I will always push for the AFC East Roundtable to do an event at Gillette Stadium. And I think the better the Patriots are, the more realistic that it is we actually do an event there. So I promise you, Patriots 12, we're going to do an event there. I will make sure myself that it happens at some point. I will always push and vouch for some type of event over at Gillette Stadium. But we are still doing an event in Buffalo, New York. So in the Bills Stadium, it's going to be Bills hosting the Dolphins. AFC East Roundtable is doing an event there, and we might do one at MetLife. We're not just sure yet. But we are still doing a game this year. We are still doing a game. Brooke comes in here, says, PG, when quarterback survival is critical for this team, does the Patriots O-line give you anxiety? Brooke, I have nightmares about this Patriots offensive line. You know, they say when you're part of sports media, you eat, drink, sleep, breathe, live football, and it's 100% true. Because I think about this team 24/7, and I say this all the time. And if you are a longtime supporter of this channel, you've been around even over the last 6 months, you would know that one of my most famous sayings on this channel, it's a real belief of mine, is that the offensive line is like an engine to a car. I got to get that on a shirt like merch because I say that so often. But I do believe it, right? Because all offensive production starts with the offensive line. If you think about it, it doesn't matter if you have Christian McCaffrey back there. It doesn't matter if you have, I'm trying to think of the most mid running back in the NFL that you can. It doesn't matter if you have a UDFA running back there or if you got Christian McCaffrey back there. If you have a bad offensive line, those backs aren't going to cook. It's just a fact, right? Like last year, for example, everybody gave flack to Ramondre, and they should because of the fumbles. But in terms of the production, I can't put that on Ramondre. Why? Because as soon as the ball was snapped, Ramondre had 3 defenders in his face. I don't care how good you are. I don't care where you were drafted. I don't care about your contract. No running back is getting open and dodging 3 defenders, 1v3. It's just not going to happen. It's just not realistic. So in order for your running game to be efficient, you need blockers. You need a good offensive line. In order for your passing game to be productive, you need an offensive line. Why? Because your quarterback needs time to get through his progressions. He needs to get time to go through his dropbacks. You also need time for the wide receivers to get through their routes in order to actually get open. If your quarterback has less than a second to get the ball out before he's sacked, do you really think that in that split second, your wide receivers are going through their route progressions? No, they need time to do that. And that all comes with the offensive line. So, Brooke, to answer your question, I definitely do have anxiety. I do think that this is going to be an improved offensive line. Do I think that it is the end all be all? Do I think that it is going to be like a top 12 offensive line? No, there's going to be a lot more work to do in the offseason, but at the same time, the team couldn't do everything in one offseason. They tried. They tried to get veterans at right tackle. They tried to get veterans at left tackle. They tried to get veterans at guard. But with the offensive line, if you want those guys, you have to draft them. Good offensive linemen don't become available. They always look like they're going to hit free agency, but then they very rarely ever do. If you want good offensive linemen, whether it's interior, whether it's at tackle, you have to be able to draft those guys. The team drafted quite a bit of O-linemen over the last few years. I would expect the same thing to happen next year also. Right? I think we'll be better than last year, but I don't think it's going to be where we need it to be to get the real look at what this offense could be, what Drake Maye really could be. But I mean, look, if they can stay healthy, it's not a bad O-line. If they can stay healthy, you got Will Campbell, you got Morgan Moses, you got Jared Wilson or Garrett Bradbury at center. You got Michael Onwenu, who's like a second-team all-pro guard when they just allow him to stay at right guard, and then just figuring out whoever your left guard's going to be at that point. But it's really the depth that concerns me, and no offensive line stays healthy for an entire year. It just doesn't happen. And it's the depth behind the starters that concerns me. But guys, that is going to end it off for today. We will be doing more live streams like this in the future. Come next week. Like I said, Monday, come kick it with me, guys. Monday is going to be just a really fun and chilled back just live stream. Monday at about 9:30, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Like I said earlier, we're going to be going live to be doing something on this channel we've never done before. We are going to be reacting to live training camp news. We're going to be hearing about what the guys are doing, what the players are doing. We're going to be reacting to videos. We're going to be reacting to highlights, press conferences, all on this channel. We'll be live for a couple of hours, and we'll even answer some of your questions in the chat too while we wait for some information and some news to come on in. So make sure you guys kick it with us. Make sure you guys go ahead, click that linked pin in the live chat right now to go ahead and check out all of my other training camp recap videos. We have recapped 4 days now. The other 3 days are right up on the channel right now. But guys, as always, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in with me here on Saturday night. Make sure if you're watching live on YouTube, you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button on your way out. If you're watching on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. And of course, hit that link in my Twitter bio to come on over to YouTube and subscribe so that you get notified every single time I post a video, a short, and go live. If you're watching on Twitter, you're only getting notified when I go live. That is a lot of content you're just not hearing about. But as always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. I am Colby Cochran, also known as Patriots Global, and go Pats, baby.